Tom here, and we're a moment or two early, so we're just going to get started. Really excited to have you all here. This month is going to be super rad. One of the things that I just wanted to share with everybody is that, as you may have heard, this is Lyme Awareness Month. It's a time where I, for the last several years, have been doing a lot of free educational series, just because I think it's so important that people understand, the nuts and bolts of Lyme, how to treat it, even how you get it, how to prevent tick bites, and then also what to do, from a treatment perspective. But we've done that a lot before. And one of the things I was doing is reflecting on how I got better. And so when I was sick with Lyme and babesiosis, I had a pretty circuitous journey to finding somebody who could help me. And a lot of it turned out that I learned about self-care, self-healing, and the ways to really amp up our immune system to release stress and strain in our body. And so this year I wanted to do something a bit different. It's so many people who have gotten Lyme and some of the other tick-borne co-infections, or like I call Lyme and friends, really spend years without a great diagnosis. And then once they get it, they take even longer to heal. So this is where I was really thinking about what were the modalities that really helped me heal, because at the time we're recording this, I haven't had a symptom for over 13 years. And the crazy part is it took me over 13 years to get better. So this month, myself and my guests are really going to be sharing with you those cutting edge approaches to healing that you can use right from the comfort of your own home. So this month isn't going to be about more meds and herbs or, more expensive tests, or, it's not to say that those things aren't important and crucial in your healing, but so many of us are talking about them, and there's so much information online that it even adds to the confusion. And the nuances, in my opinion and experience as both a patient and a physician, the nuances of diagnosis and treatment really are talked about best one-on-one with a certified Lyme specialist. Like some of those who've gone through my intensive year-long training and mentorship program, the Lyme Disease Practitioner Certification and Mentorship Program. So, I think it's better to do that way than one-on-one or in a support group. So if you want to learn more about preventing tick bites, what to do if you're bitten, even how to treat acute or chronic Lyme and other infections, I'm going to drop a link in just a moment to last year's Lyme Awareness Month series on our Origins of Health YouTube channel. And it's really going to cover all those things that you need to know. And the only thing left out is a little bit of our update on tafenoquine. And for all of you who really want to dive deep into that, I'm going to drop that right now in the chat. And so let me just get to the right chat here so we can give it to everybody. And this is all that information. So, click on that, keep it for later. But I really want to dive into what we're doing tonight, because this is really, really a great time. So one quick sort of public service announcement, if you will, housekeeping is we did somehow have a mix-up between daylight savings and standard time, but all of our presentations this whole month will be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or right now, so that's really great. Next week, we're going to have Arturo Gaitan, who's talking about unlocking deep defense patterns, resetting your nervous system, and opening new pathways for healing momentum. At the end of the month, on the 27th, we'll have Harry Massey. He was in a wheelchair for 6 to 7 years, and with chronic fatigue, he's going to show you how to get your energy back using biofrequency and modern bioenergetics, as well as a little bit of a new wearable tech that can really transform your healing journey. At the end of the month, on the 29th, I'll be leading you through a healing blueprint that really specifically what I use to overcome chronic Lyme disease, chronic babesiosis, and heavy metal toxicity. And I'm going to share with you the things that you can use to have that same path of healing and finding your purpose again, because that's something I had lost a bunch. So I'm really excited tonight, though, to introduce my near dear friend, Deanna Hansen, because she's a person who I met a couple years back, and as an osteopathic physician, fellowship trained in manual medicine and releasing fascia, improving the flow of the nervous system, the flow, like we talk so much about limbic training, retraining in the vagus nerve. Well, if your muscles and your fascia are too tight around it, it's not, no matter what you do, it's not going to get better. So we have to learn how to release that. And we also have to learn how to open up the fascia and the muscles and the movement in your body so that we can pump the lymphatics and get the toxins out of our body. So I'm going to bring Deanna up here. And Deanna, I just wanted to say welcome. Thanks so much for being here with us. And yeah, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Tom. It's an absolute pleasure to be here sharing with your community.
Yeah. Two quick other things, just so everybody knows, if you have any friends who haven't, registered and they want to see this, they can still register. We are also live streaming to YouTube and LinkedIn so that if you want to watch a replay or you miss something, as soon as we're done, you'll be able to go right back immediately following the live broadcast and get that. And be able to watch for any of the key points. So you don't necessarily need to take notes, just settle in and enjoy yourself. The other last piece of housekeeping before we dive in with Deanna is just keep an eye on your inboxes for special announcements and discounts from, our speakers. They have amazing core offerings and different approaches that have really made a huge difference in my life and so many of my patients. So we want to share them with you. Those are only available for people who have registered. So feel free. If you're not registered yet, just click on the link for registration, which I'll drop a little bit later, and we'll go from there. So yeah, Deanna, I'm so excited about talking tonight because really, like you were talking about, like, let's talk about the fascia and called the fascia factor, releasing persistent pain patterns. And the thing that really blew my mind when we first started talking and introduced is like, you look at fascia in a way that no one I know has even come close to. So maybe you can kind of just, give us a little background introduction to what we're going to be doing. And we do have a quick public service announcement for tonight's experience too, while we're doing a little talking. So I'll let you do that for us.
Yeah, so we're going to be first going through a couple of before and after photos and really dive into understanding the body from a fascia perspective, particularly cause sites to our pain issues. And then I'm going to take you through a presentation where you can join me on the mat. So if you can go and grab a bath towel, and once we're ready to dive in, I'm going to show you how to roll it properly. So this can be the tool that you're using.
Awesome. And so just another quick reminder while we'll give you guys a moment to grab a bath towel if you like. Having done this experience on a bath towel before, it's incredible. I would highly recommend going to grab your bath towel. I'm going to drop in a quick thing. Just so you know, we have some special guests from my Samara Method program. They're folks who are diving even deeper into this with me. And they, we have Q&A, so feel free to drop it in the chat. Those guys who are in our healing experience will get a little bit of priority on that. So I dropped some information on that. And one last thing, just because one of my favorite things in the whole world to do is teach, not only for patients and you guys to help you get better, but to help practitioners. If you know any practitioners who want to join us on our mentorship program, there's the information. I figure we take up a few minutes while people were getting their towels, and in my usual speed, I got done it in 20 seconds. So yeah, Deanna, why don't you dive into your presentation? I'm just so excited. This is so cool for me because we're doing something so different that we just don't usually do. We're usually nuts and bolts of how to heal things with medicines. Whereas I think that if we open up the body and let the body's self-healing mechanism do its job, we really start to see a completely different foundation for healing. So that's why I'm so excited to hear what you've got to say tonight.
Wonderful. So first of all, I just want to dive in and just talk a little bit about fascia and my perspective on this incredible tissue. So I really see it as the cell membrane of every other cell membrane, connecting every single cell in the body. So it's the communication between all cells, and primarily made of collagen and elastin. And when properly balanced, provides both structural support for the body as well as the ability for us to move. Now, in a perfect world, the goal of that is to keep our internal space optimal. So there's space in and around every single cell. And if that's the case, there's ease of flow of nutrients into the cell, as well as the ease of removal of toxins and waste away from the cell. Now, However, that is not our situation because we are under this constant force of gravity that's pulling us toward the earth. We're also asymmetrical. We're dominant on one side, and we have patterns that we get ingrained in our fascia that basically become these drivers that pull us out of alignment and that really, most importantly, block our ability to properly breathe diaphragmatically. So basically, we are under constant compression. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today is fascia decompression. And there's 3 pillars. The first pillar is creating space, and that's what we're going to be doing on the mat. The second pillar is about inflating that space, moving the blood and oxygen into those newly created spaces. Think of blowing up a balloon where that balloon is nice and full, round, it's glowing, it almost defies gravity, but take half the air out of the balloon. Now it becomes wrinkled, dirt and debris get stuck in the creases, it becomes heavy. So if we're not breathing diaphragmatically lifelong, as we go through this aging process, the cells start to deflate, they become sticky, and they get pulled away from correct alignment because of this migration. And it's the collagen that ultimately migrates to create these false walls and false floors, which basically act like scar tissue, blocking that blood and oxygen flow. And then the third pillar is maintaining that space so we can support proper cell alignment to keep everything flowing. And as long as our body's flowing optimally, really there is no dis-ease in the body. It's when we compress and have congested lymph, that's when we start really seeing problems in our system. So Tom, I'd love to share the screen now so we can talk about the before and after photos. And I just want to go through these really quickly just to get people really excited about how efficient this work is and what you can expect. Okay, so let's go to that next screen, and it's just a slide where I'm just going to read it about cause sites and pain sites. So just as smoke swirls unpredictably as it drifts away from its heat source, the body over time succumbs to gravity, creating chaos at the surface and in the extremities where energy is most depleted. The limbs and the head become the holding pattern for your fascia, reflecting the deeper imbalances within. This is a really important point because when we have pains or an issue somewhere in the body, we want to go right to that area. But to understand what's causing those issues is really the key here. And the feet, the hands, and the top of the head, they're all the furthest from the diaphragm. So they truly become the biggest holding patterns for what goes on in our fascia, with a force up to 2,000 pounds per square inch of that fascia holding us out of alignment. So if we can go to the next slide now. This is a before and after photo of one of our members. She did our 90-day program, and we asked, don't change diet, don't change exercise. And one of her biggest concerns was shoulder pain. She had gone for years to physio, no relief. And then she did this 90-day program. And not only do we see an incredible change in her alignment, she was also able to get rid of the shoulder pain. And what I just want to bring your attention to right now is just around the front of the ankle. So the ankle and the foot, again, become these crazy holding patterns. And you can see how thick her legs are in that front photo, or in the before photo, and then how much of a lift and how much change has occurred in the after photo. Even the color of the tissue is different because now we have blood and oxygen flow moving into these spaces. You can also sense how much her rib cage has lifted, the difference in her neck. So now we've got the lymph moving much more freely through her entire body. If you can go to the next photos, we'll just take a peek at her from the back here. What I love here is how much change she had in her pelvic alignment, how much longer the back looks. She's really brought her center of gravity onto her heels. So you can even see the shoulders coming back and down. You can see that little line at the base of her neck. If she continued in this pathway, she would very likely end up with a dowager's hump, but she was able to really bring proper alignment back into the neck through this process. Go to the next set of slides. These are my favorite of hers because she did not change her diet. Look at the difference in the size of her abdomen. That's inflammation, toxins, parasites, all the things that we don't want stuck in our cells. And yet, this is all we had to do was decompress the fascia, turn on proper diaphragmatic breathing, and understand how to hold our body in correct alignment. So let's go to the next set of photos. Unless, Tom, you have anything you want to share there.
I think that it's just remarkable to me, and I love the fact that you're pointing out, the difference, and just seeing like it. Not all weight is weight, and the lymphatics and the inflammation is critical. So I mean, and it's as we're about to see right now, it's not just one person.
Right. And what I loved about this photo, this was a 30-day lower body program. So we only worked waist down. And you can see that left leg of hers, how completely out of alignment that left knee is. And she did a remarkable job to bring balance into both legs. And then you start to see a little bit of twisting up the chain. But if you go to the next set of photos, what I love here is right where the liver is in that before photo, you can see how her body was twisted over to the left because of that left leg. And without even touching that rib cage or above, she was able to bring her rib cage back to better alignment. And then by the action of working the diaphragm properly, which I'm going to share more when we're actually on the mat, now we're getting a mechanical action of the diaphragm moving up and down to support heating that liver so we can bring energy into all of the abdominal organs, heart and lungs as well. But that was, again, just working that lower body. So you can see that right shoulder, even how much congestion would be occurring in that right side of her neck, and how that right shoulder has been brought back and down from focusing only on the foundation. We can go to the next set. And then this was another lovely lady. This was a 5-month before and after. And we can see the umbilical hernia that's in the abdomen there. And just the quality of the tissue, even in the legs, up and around the throat and the neck. So she went through an assessment with one of our therapists and was given a prescription. If you want to go to the next set of photos. Again, you can see the back. Notice where the shoulder blades are. We're going to be talking tonight about the shoulder blades, and I'm going to be sharing a really amazing position to assist in releasing the shoulder blades so they can track properly on the ribs, which then opens up the lymphatics in the armpit. Go to the next photo. I just want to flip through these real quick. So this is Walter. He's 73 in the before photo. He's 74 in the after photo. And I mean, he looks great in both pictures. But if we look at the first photo, you can see in the abdomen how asymmetrical the muscles are. So right where that liver is, you can see that protrusion. That's an indicator that that liver is not getting properly heated. So there's going to be fats getting stuck and stored in the liver that are going to block the liver's ability to help clean the blood and all the other functions it does. And in that after photo, you can really see how much more symmetry, how much more lift of that rib cage. Again, really one of the main features here is to support proper diaphragmatic breathing. If you go to the next set of photos. The side photo here. Now, he did mention he stopped the gym. This was right around when his father had passed as well. And what was so fascinating was he actually worked on his father's toes with one of the techniques I'm going to show you here. His father was 102, couldn't walk, and was hardly eating. He did pass at 103 8 months later, but for those last 8 months of his life, he got walking. He was eating full meals. He was so much healthier and happier. So it was just such a wonderful thing. But again, you can really see the lift of that rib cage and how that diaphragm, again, has so much greater opportunity to do its job properly. Next photos, and just his back here, you can again see that alignment of those shoulder blades coming into play so much better. Next photos. And I just wanted to share here, this was 7 weeks because kids can do this too. This child was going to end up getting a rod in his spine and then didn't need to have that. So when he was 7 years old, he picked up a bow and arrow and he was just doing the action of pulling that right arm back repeatedly, which was when his mother said she started noticing his posture really becoming twisted. So when I first got on a call with him, I not only gave them a blocking prescription for him to do, but I said, pick up that bow and arrow and start doing it the opposite direction so you can start to pull your body back to balance. And pretty incredible in just 7 weeks what he was able to do. And then the last set of photos is another young boy. This was after 1 month. And again, they wanted to put a rod in his spine. And if you can imagine what that would do, now you're locking this little body as it's growing. And again, the limbs, the legs, the arms, they're really the puppet masters of the core. So when we can eliminate the need for doing those things, this changes the trajectory of where he's going with his health. So that was it for the photos. I just wanted to give everybody a little taste of what's to come. And Now let's jump onto the mat and let's actually give a try and see how this feels for everyone. So the
Yeah, and
only thing is, if you're pregnant, we don't want you
if
doing the belly position. So just as a note, and I just want to show you also how to roll up your towel. So you've got a nice bath towel, and we're just going to fold it in quarters. So fold it in half and then fold it one more time. And then I am simply just going to roll it up nice and tight. The tighter, the better, because the key is we want this to be really dense. We use blocks which are made of wood because bone and wood are similar in density. And because fascia will grip and adhere to bone with that 2,000 pound per square inch seal, we want something similar in density so we can move through the layers and release it. But a rolled up towel works pretty darn great. Okay, so now we're going to dive in. Now, if you have a lot of pain in the abdomen, I'm just going to show you one variation that you can do. And then for everyone else, we're going to end up lying on this towel. So you'll be on your back if you don't want to lie on it. And we're simply going to place the towel right on the belly button. And then we're going to add a little pressure with the hands. And then when we inhale, we want the belly to rise. When we exhale, we want the belly to fall. Now, before we jump in, I just want to share why. So your diaphragm muscle is here. This is really important that we understand this. When we're inhaling, the diaphragm moves down. When we exhale, it lifts. And when it's working properly, it creates a massage for all of the organs and everything in this space. The challenge is pain, fear, and stress cause you to reactively hold the breath. And let's face it, we're dealing with a very stressful world. So most people are actually breathing through the muscles of the upper chest as the fallout breath. That's like a space heater compared to using your body's furnace. So most people have allowed the collapsing of the core into the rib cage because this muscle has now become weakened. And now that we're breathing up through here, our body has become colder. Cold tissue means slow, congested, toxic, dirty cells that aren't properly fed and clean. So we're going to wake this area up. We're going to be working primarily in through here so we can really support you having, most importantly, a really strong full exhalation. So I'm also going to be sharing exhale for a count of 6, inhale for a count of 4, and unless you can't, let's breathe in and out through the nose. So to begin, we're going to be 3 minutes or so in each position. So to get into this, we are simply going to lie on the towel right on the belly button. And initially, let's stay up on the elbows. And pain, pressure, and a pulse are all normal to experience. The rule is your breath is your guide. As long as you're breathing in a relaxed way, you're feeding and healing the cells. If anything hurts so much it takes that relaxed breath away, that's your body saying this is too intense. You can take some of the height of the towel by unrolling it a little bit. You can also do this work on a bed. And if it's really just not for you, this is something that you can just watch instead then. So to begin, let's focus on inhaling into the towel, almost like you're doing a full body push-up with the breath. This position is really about bringing the breath down into the belly so we can support that diaphragmatic movement. It's also about creating the space that has been lost in through this area. When we compress, we balloon. Most people think that we have increased fat cells as we get older and we struggle to maintain our size and shape. It's really more about compression, ballooning, and then the toxicity that results from not having proper lymphatic drainage. Now let's shift your focus to the exhalation phase of the breath. As you exhale, get a sense that that towel is sinking as deeply as possible into this core space. And let's focus on exhaling for a count of 6, inhaling for a count of 4. And that's not seconds, that's just your count, whatever that means for you. And if you can hear yourself breathing, see if you can pull it back so it's a little bit more relaxed. We want it to be full and complete, but not forced. This is all about persuasion versus force. When we force the fascia, it punches back. When we can be really kind to our bodies, we turn on that parasympathetic nervous system and we go into that healing space. We'll spend 1 more minute here. For some of you, you may want to even bring the rib cage to the floor. That becomes a little more intense, so remember your breath is your guide. And we'll take 3 slow exhales here. And when you're ready to come out, place your hands under your shoulders, take a nice full inhale, and then exhale with the movement. And then just come back to seated. So right off the hop, you've just done some really good exercise. So you might feel nice and warm already. Now we're going to dive into a couple of positions here on this left side. Before we do, let's just take that left arm up. Take it as far back. Just go through some range of motion. Just notice the quality of the movement in the shoulder. You can do the same thing on the right side, just becoming aware of our starting point. So now we're going to start with the left lower rib position. So for the ladies, it will be just underneath the breast tissue. Basically, we're going to be right on these lower ribs. So we will take our time getting into this, drawing that right leg out to the side just for some stability, and then gently lower your body right onto those lower ribs. And initially just stay up on the elbow. And once you settle into position, let's focus on that full exhale. Get a sense that you're pulling the belly up into the core as you squeeze the belly small. And then with the inhale, allow it to, in a relaxed way, move toward the floor. Now I'm going to take you through some movements. So remember, your breath is your guide. If I take you into any space that's too intense for you, simply stay where you can in that relaxed breath, or with that relaxed breath. So first of all, let's just slowly lower the rib cage a little bit. So we're adding a little bit more pressure into these lower ribs. And then let's also connect to that left glute just to ground our pelvis. And then from here, let's just very gently walk the upper body to the left. Just nice, gentle movements. Staying focused on that full exhale. And with each exhale, you may even be able to drop that rib cage a little bit lower to the floor. You can even twist a little bit deeper. And then let's very slowly walk the body back to neutral. We are right on the stomach organ right now, also right on the aorta, that main artery leaving the heart. So we want to create a lot of space here. Now let's take that right hand to the side of the mat and let's just put a little bit of pressure into that hand. So we're just rolling the body a little bit to the left, just to find another space to add a little compression. Slowly dropping the rib cage to the floor. And from this alignment, keep that left glute nice and connected, and then walk those hands to the left. Do a little bit of a deeper twist here. Micro movements though, we always want to be moving with consideration for our body. We don't force or rush through anything. Take 3 more slow exhales here. Slowly walk the upper body back to neutral. Three more slow exhales once again. Place your hands under your shoulders, and when you're ready, slowly exhale up and out of position. Come back to seated. The next position we're going to do is the upper side ribs. This one is important because as we fall out of alignment, the shoulder blades migrate and then glue to the side ribs, blocking our ability to have normal range of motion. And also those ribs don't allow that to track properly. So we're going to be lying on our side, so right around nipple height. And then you're simply going to lie on the side here. And in the beginning, you can support your head in your hand. Keep the knees bent just so you're nice and balanced. And then just slowly rock forward and backward, just to get a sense of how this feels. You can even place your hand on your belly to make sure the breath is coming from the right place. So with that inhale, make it nice and big. With the exhale, squeeze the belly small. And for some of you, this may be more than enough sensation. But if you want to go a little deeper, you can take that top hand to the top of the mat, walk those fingers away so you're lengthening the arm away from the body, and then you can lean into the top hand. You can even take that top leg to the floor, straighten that bottom leg, and lean in a little bit more. So for the ladies, we're going to be really getting a sense of compression on that outer portion of the breast tissue. That's totally fine here. And then what we want to do with this top hand is slowly walk the hand to the left. So we're opening up this space to really support lymphatic drainage. If you feel you can go a little bit deeper, you can come onto the fingertips of that left hand. You can even lift that left hand up off the floor. That gets pretty intense though. So remember, let's respect your limits. There's no point in trying to force the body. Now you can bring that hand back to the floor if it's been lifted and see if you can take it a little bit further to the left. So there's a really interesting deep pain in here, and it's because the adhesions form in chaotic patterns and we're getting nice and deep to melt through them. Pressure over time creates heat. Combining that with diaphragmatic breathing, now you're heating from the outside and the inside. Let's very slowly take the left arm back to the top of the mat, and then you can bring your body back to that initial position. And then let's just take that top leg behind you and just take a moment just to roll back a little bit. And you can just rock forward and backward just to get a sense of how that feels. And then when you're ready, let's just lean into that top hand and slowly exhale up to seated. And then before we move on, let's take that left arm up and see what has happened. Notice if there's greater range of motion. Maybe you have better quality in the movement. All of these areas are cause sites for the shoulders and everything below, as well as everything above. So again, we're talking about cause sites versus issues with pain. So when people have shoulder pain, just working on that shoulder is not going to be enough. Let's now do the same two things on the right side. So right below that right breast, now we're going to be on top of the liver. So this will feel probably very different than it felt when you were on top of the stomach organ. So taking your time to get in. Left leg out to the side. You can stay up on the elbows initially. Let's connect to that full exhale. And then as it feels right for you, if you want to slowly lower the rib cage toward the floor, add a little more compression to this space. Feeling the belly lifting into the core with that full exhale. Also keeping that exhale for a count, inhale for 4. Let's connect to that right glute to stabilize the pelvis. And if it feels right for you, let's walk the upper body over to the right, giving a nice twist. These shearing movements help us move deeper through the layers of the fascia to melt those adhesions that are blocking flow. Breathing in and out through the nose unless you can't. Now let's twist a little bit deeper. Imagine you're taking the liver and you're wringing it out. All of those fats that are blocking the liver's ability to function, we're helping to melt them, just like putting butter into a frying pan that's heated. See if you can deepen that twist a little bit more. One last time here. And then slowly walking the upper body back to neutral. Keep that right glute engaged. Let's take the left hand to the side of the mat. Just add a little pressure into the hand so you're rolling just a little to the right. And you'll just find a new area of adhesion to spend time with. And this twist is going to go a little deeper, so respect your limits, but if you can, gently from here, twisting over to the right again. Slowly, let's walk the upper body back to neutral. And we'll take 3 more breaths here. Exhaling for a count of 6, inhaling for 4. And when you're ready, hands under the shoulders, nice full inhale, and slowly exhale up out of position. And now we will do the same thing on that right side. Nipple height, lying right on that towel, supporting your head in your hand, knees bent. And once in position, you can gently rock forward and backward. If you want to go a little deeper, take that right hand to the top of the mat, walk the fingers away, lengthening the arm from the body. Leaning into that top hand. You can even go a little deeper, taking the top leg to the floor, straighten the bottom leg. Now you're really getting a good compression on that outer breast area. And then let's walk that right hand over to the right, opening up this space, really getting to this lymphatic area, help clean out the breast tissue. Stay focused on that full exhale. If you can come up onto the fingertips of that right hand. You can even lift that right hand up. That gets really deep, so respect your limits. And you can take the hand back to the floor and walk that right hand a little further away. And then let's gently take that right arm back. You can come back to the side. Support your head in your hand. Take that top leg behind you, and then just lean back a little bit. And this is really about becoming friends with pain. Pain is simply the sensation your cell gives you to let you know it needs some time and attention. It's not something to fear. And when we choose to find pain on purpose, surface it, exhale it out of the body, and feel all the amazing benefits that come with that, pain becomes your friend. And when you're ready, let's lean into that top hand, slowly exhale back to seated. And then let's just take that arm and see if you've made some progress with your range of motion. Okay, I want to do a couple of positions with the hand. So again, we're focused more here. This is really just a little sampling of all the things I want to share with you, but the hands will lock you in negative alignment. Palms forward is actually anatomical position. It's how we should be at rest. Most people, because of the collapse of the rib cage into the core, we have internally rotated arms. People are walking around with the palms facing behind them. So even just sitting there, turn your palms forward and just feel what that does to the rib cage. Because again, the feet, the hands, the top of the head are furthest from the engine. This is where we get locked into these negative alignments. So for something even with scoliosis, if we don't release the hands and the feet, we're not going to get anywhere in creating a shift. So we're going to lie on our back for this, and I'm just going to share with you what I'm going to do. You're going to get a double duty here. We're going to be putting the towel underneath the left glute. Then we're going to take your wrist of the left hand and you're going to sandwich it between the glute and the towel. So you're right on the wrist. And then once you get there, you can straighten that left leg. Now, you might feel more sensation in the glute. You might feel it more in the wrist. Either way, you're getting benefit. And then once you're here, let's use this right foot as leverage so that we can rock left to right, just so that we can search for the pain. Focus on that full exhale to move the pain up and out of the body. You can even imagine black smoke leaving your nose as the toxins leave your system. For some of you, this may be more than enough. If you want to up this sensation a little bit, now you can bring this left leg up. That's really going to feel nice in the glute. And the higher you can take your knee to your shoulder, you're really going to be opening up these deeper adhesions to push them up through to the surface. For anybody with sciatic issues, piriformis syndrome, this will be a really lovely position for you to do. And all the while that you're likely feeling more sensation in the glutes, you're getting a ton of benefit in the wrist. So now, as I'm moving my leg, I'm not moving quickly. I'm moving nice and slow because the slower we move, the deeper we get. And the goal is we get as deep as we can because at the bone is where the collagen, those adhesions will grip and adhere with that 2,000 pound per square inch seal. Spend about 1 more minute here. Now, after you exhale for the count of 6, let's see if you can hold for as long as you can before engaging the inhale. For those of you who haven't read James Nestor's book called Breath, I highly recommend it. It goes into a deep dive into the mechanics of breathing, breathing through the nose, aligning the tongue as we also teach, and to really increase the carbon dioxide in your blood, because that is the currency for the oxygen to jump from the hemoglobin into the cell. It also really supports the parasympathetic nervous system. We should be there for about 80% of our day, when in fact the majority of people are in that sympathetic state for the majority of the day. Let's take 3 more slow exhales here. And then when you're ready, all we're going to do is bring that foot down, lift the pelvis up. Let's just shift the towel to the right glute, and then we will sandwich the wrist between the glute and the towel. And once in position, then you can straighten that right leg and just use this left foot as leverage so you can rock right to left. And to go even deeper, you can start bringing that right leg up and just start to go with the flow. I like to imagine I'm in the middle of the ocean and I'm just letting the current take me. And if you get to an area where you feel quite a bit of pain, you can even stay there for 3 slow exhales to engage the pressure fibers to awaken. Pressure overrides pain because of those pressure fibers. So that's one of the wonderful benefits of doing this. We become pain seekers, and then as we go through the practice, it changes to be a good pain, something that you then want to seek out. It's really not the pain that's the challenge. We get caught in a pain fear cycle. The more pain we feel, the more we hold the breath, the more fear we have, the more we hold the breath. And then that cycle gets driven by the lack of movement of the diaphragm and the stagnancy that gets created from that lack of lymphatic movement. Let's take 3 more slow, full exhales here, holding that exhale for as long as you can before engaging the inhale. And when you're ready, you can place that right foot on the floor, just lift up, take that towel away, roll to one side, use your top hand to assist you as you exhale up. Okay. So I also want to just show you a really beautiful release that you can do with your fingers and your toes. And I highly recommend doing this every day, because now we're talking about the furthest areas from your diaphragm. These are the biggest holding patterns, and they've actually proven the link between longevity and toe strength. So what you want to do, and you can use your finger, you can use a pencil, a chopstick, but basically we want to get between each and every toe, and we want to put pressure. And then you want to be there for about 3 minutes as you focus on that exhale, enough that you can feel the pain between each toe because the toes get patterned. So how we've been walking our lifetime is locked in the toes and in the feet. So when we can release all of the toes, it's incredible the amount of energy that you bring in through the legs, the amount of detoxing that can happen through the feet. And then you start to repattern how you walk. We basically have turned our feet into flat tires. And in fact, when I'm watching or looking at people's bodies to do assessments, one foot will be driving away like a flat tire, and then the other side will anchor. And that creates chaos up the chain. We are like a building. We want to bring balance and symmetry into our body. So when we can repattern the toes, and then after you do that, if you can even stand and grip the toes into the floor for 10 slow exhales, it's like you're pumping up the tires. And then you start walking with a spring in your step instead of allowing your body to continue to fall into those negative patterns that have been driven through your life. So doing that toe exercise every day is super powerful as well. The fingers are even easier because we can do both hands at the same time. Between your thumb and index finger, do it at around belly button height. Just spread apart the fingers and push into the webbing. Again, enough that you feel that pain. You want to hold that for 3 minutes, and you want to do it between each of the fingers in this way. And as you do that, if you have things like arthritis in the hands, Dupuytren's, carpal tunnel, and then tension up the chain, if you do that, you're going to start to really get a sense that your arms hang in a relaxed way, which is going to bring such a sense of relief to the muscles of the upper back, the neck, even the jaw, and really bring that lift to the rib cage so we can optimize proper diaphragmatic breathing. So those two additional exercises you can do on your own time. I do it when I'm sitting watching TV. I'll even do it when I'm sitting talking to Tom on a podcast and people won't see my hands. So really accessible and simple to do. So Tom, I don't know how much more time you have. I mean, I can certainly do more positions, but I'm sure people probably have some questions that they might want to go through. So whatever you think is optimal for our time here.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you because it's so amazing. And just for everyone to know, like, this stuff is so deceivingly simple, but I think there's a couple of things. One, it obviously opens up our fascia. The people we saw, like the twist of the diaphragm and around the liver. And, you know, one of the things to remember, a lot of the lymphatic, everybody wants to know how to detoxify better. You know, everybody wants the best supplement, the best procedure. Well, the best thing to do is to focus on your natural structure that holds you up and release some of the strains around the liver. It's like, you know, if you could be on the world's greatest liver detox IV and or, you know, supplement protocol, but if it's tight, I mean, if you look at the liver, it's just surrounded by fascia. And in fact, everything in your body starts as energy, grows into fascia, and then it becomes everything that we're looking. So the literally, if you look at the fascia, it is the structure that supports your body. You can remove everything from the human being and only have fascia, and you would still recognize them as who they are. If you looked at their skeleton, not so much, just their bones, or sorry, their muscles, that you wouldn't. We need the structure, but like your fascia has electrical currents, it's got fluid currents, and it is the bag in which everything grows. So when you work on this, that's why you can work on your toes and see changes in the back of your neck. And, you know, so many of these things like under the arms, it's local, but it's the whole body. And like, you know, I can't say enough how much, Deanna, like the fascia is one of the hardest things to release in the conventional approach to it. You know, there's so many different ways to do it, but I love what you're talking about with the connective, with the approaching pain. I think one of the things that we have when we become chronically ill is a fear of this pain, because usually it indicates like a downward spiral in the wrong direction. Whereas this, we get to come into our body, heal the area, heal any of the physical and emotional traumas that may be interwoven in that area. One of the things that I think I would love to hear your take on, and we can certainly look at questions too, is what about, like, because a lot of this is physical. I mean, everybody you saw was like, just went, I mean, it's crazy. And like that, the second to the last adult, the older lady, if you look at her feet, before and after, you're just like, oh my God. And it's like the arch just pops up. You can see the freedom, for someone who's trained. But I think the other part, to me, that's so dramatic is that your fascia, because it holds electrical currents and it's this super highway of communication through your body, it also holds a lot of like these emotional events that a lot of people have. And so I'd love to, see what your take is and maybe dive into that just a hair.
I love that conversation because pain, fear, and stress, when it happens to us, we reactively hold the breath. So whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, spiritual pain, if we have that happening to us at any time in our life, the response is, oh, I got to heal or I've got to protect. So if if a deer survives an attack, you see them shake afterward because they're releasing the energy. But we as humans, we go into this freeze mode and we stay there. So if these things happen when we're in our developmental stages of life, so we're growing with this compression, now this muscle that is meant to deliver oxygen, the most important nutrient for the cells, it becomes compromised and then we grow from that position. Even in yoga, they say we're born in this lifetime with a signature posture, and the goal of this lifetime is to break through that signature posture. My take on that is we are born in this lifetime with our mother's breath. So if our mother had a really stressful time in life before, during pregnancy, now we're coming out with whatever she was able to do from a breathing perspective. That's what we're coming into this world with. So we had a stressed mother, we have a stressed baby, and then you throw life at that individual and they age from there. So all of the things get trapped in how we breathe, and all the breathing exercises that you do without releasing the adhesions that have locked the rib cage won't release. It's like people always ask, what's the difference between stretching and fascia decompression? If I was going to do a forward bend to see how long my hamstring was and I kept stretching to keep it at length, I am stretching what's available. When we do fascia decompression, what I would teach you to do is go forward. Where are you limited? Block the area where you feel limitation for 3 minutes. And then when you're done, now you have that tissue that's been released to now lengthen. So same with the rib cage. If we've been patterned from breathing in this alignment, we can strengthen what we have available, but we want to make all of that muscle available. And that's through this work of spending that time with those adhesions and the breath so we can release them from the bone. And then that in turn helps us move out the negative emotion, the trauma that's been stuck and trapped in the layers of our fascia. And again, it's the body's way of protecting us, but we don't need that protection past the incident when it happens yet. Because we're not like those deers that go through the release, we keep it in us, and then it stays in us as part of the patterning, even of how we think, how we perceive life. So when we start doing this work, suddenly you can go back to those traumas and you can see them with a different lens, and then everything changes from there going forward. So it's really this beautiful, profound situation that occurs.
Yeah, what's really interesting too to me, Deanna, is as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the body has a memory. And so many people are like, I've done EMDR, I've done trauma therapy, I've done limbic retraining, amygdala, but if they haven't changed the pattern of the physical body, we talk about body, mind, and spirit. So you might do the mental, emotional work, but if you haven't released that pattern from your physical structure, it may not completely be released, right? And the same thing is like, if you only do the physical work, but you don't do kind of the mental check-ins, you might not have that. In fact, like when we were training, some of the osteopaths we work with were teaching us, they call it shock release. And they were like, when you're going through a situation, you're like, and you lock up your diaphragm. In fact, even every time I demonstrate that, I'm like, I must go release this, so it doesn't get locked in, because you get startled even, and you're held that little bit of a shock. And so we would do things that would release the linea alba, which is that like kind of like the connection that in the middle of the abdomen, a lot of the work you're doing, but you need a practitioner who's highly skilled to do that. Here, you don't need a practitioner who's highly skilled. You need yourself learning to listen to your body and following Deanna's amazing instructions. So it's really, really like incredible that, and the other part is like a friend of mine and I did a conference on the heart. And, and it was like we called it the heart of osteopathy, but it was basically like one of the big things we wanted to talk about is it's not just you're working on parts or you're working on the physical, you're working on the entire human, being by working through the physical. It's one avenue. And so if you combine these, it's really, I think, an important thing.
What I really love too, sorry, Tom, just one quick thing is when we start talking about the diaphragm too, when we're breathing diaphragmatically, we're actually changing the brain frequency. So if you're in a stressful situation, yet you're breathing diaphragmatically, your internal world is at peace because you're keeping your brain pattern in a restful state. If you're in a relaxed situation, but you're breathing in this hyper stressed breath state, now your body senses danger. So it really is not about what we're living in. It's about how we're living, how we're breathing, how we're connecting to our internal being all the time. That is really what dictates the way we understand and perceive life, whether it's kind or whether it's not, is really so much about the breath and how we can get back to that basic function that we were given at birth. Traditionally, at least our generation, babies were breathing diaphragmatically. Then over time, you lose that because of pain, fear, and stress. What is unfortunate now, but we have solutions for, babies are coming out now because the mothers are so stressed, growing up with technology and these forward alignments. And now the babies are coming out not breathing through the diaphragm. So already they're compromised right from the get-go in a much more progressive way than before. So we've got a lot of work to do to help these little ones, but really that's what it comes down to is how we breathe.
Yeah. And like even our mentors talk about the first breath. That was one of the biggest things I learned in pediatric approaches to osteopathy is that first breath. But that first breath is important, but it doesn't matter when you take it. I mean, it'd be better to take it right away and be like, open up all this stuff. But any point in your life, you can work on it. And so we have a couple questions. One is just the replay will be up on YouTube and LinkedIn. It's on youtube.com/origins of health. One of the other things I just want to remind people before we get into there's some practical questions about doing the practice. If you haven't registered, I've dropped the link a couple times. Make sure you register. I know Deanna has a really special gift for you that we're going to email you about first thing tomorrow. So make sure that you're available for that. That you can still go watch the replay for free, but hop on the registration list so you get the free gift from Deanna. So a couple questions that came up. One was kind of like, I don't know if I'm doing it correct, but the stretches and the breath work feel fantastic. And so then I'll pause on 1 second and give you the other one, and then you can do both. Couple people, actually, I do want to say hi to Nancy. When I said hi to everybody who said where they were from, she's from Ottawa, close to you, Deanna. So I didn't call her out earlier. I wanted to say hi. But anyway, both Allie and Renee were like loving all the exercises, but especially the toe exercises. And so they were wondering if you could do a little bit of a close-up. And this is one of the most profound things, because like my mom's 85. She's having a horrible time with osteoporosis, Parkinson's disease. And her feet were one of the first things that started changing. So getting her to do this can, definitely, like you were saying about that gentleman's 102, 3-year-old father, definitely help even when they're kind of in that later stages, and it makes a difference. So can we see the hands and the feet up close?
Yes.
And
so
what
the hands.
about,
so basically,
what
really
about
quick.
doing this right or wrong?
Oh yeah, and really, there's no wrong as long as you follow your breath rule. So if you're doing it between the toes, you want to basically be doing it this way. So I'll bring my toe up, but we want to get right to the webbing and we want to push down. And then you can even really slowly just turn the finger, or again, a pencil. So if I'm doing it, I might sit on a couch and, just get nice and deep there. If that's awkward though, because you might have limitation in your hip, I'm just going to grab this. We all have cords in our house, way too many, but you can use a cord or a rope, and you can even put it between, and then you can draw on it, and you can get really nice and deep doing it this way. Like this hurts like crazy, and that's what we want. We want to feel that pain. So doing it this way, watch a TV show and just, 3 minutes between each toe, feel the pain, focus on that full exhale. And then with the fingers, again, I would do it closer to belly button so you're just not scrunched up through here, but you basically want to be between your thumb and index finger, Spread the fingers so you're really pushing into that webbing so you feel it. Focus on the breath. Then between the second and third fingers, between the third and the fourth fingers, this one hurts me the most. And then through here. The responses we are hearing from people by only doing the toes, the fingers, and the breath work are mind blowing. And I love it because everybody, this is accessible to everybody. It doesn't cost you a cent to just focus on doing these things. And you're going to start to change everything, even in the core of your body, because it's your limbs that twist and torque you out of that proper alignment. So when we can just even do that alone, that's going to be such a beautiful gift for you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. And so thank you, everyone. There's so many people in the chat who are saying thank you. Thanks for sharing this excellent information. Everyone's so generous. Fantastic, Deanna. And again, I think Monique got that. She's up early hours in the UK, but yep, we definitely have the replay, as we said, and the links in the description there. Dias, am I correct that if there's someone who has the start of a dowager's hump, can that eventually be reversed with practice? Obviously, there's specific sequencing and positions, but what's your experience with that?
Yeah, and I mean, that first picture we showed you where that woman had the crease in her neck, so that's where she was headed. And really, let me just move over here so you can see more. The dowager's hump is going to be coming from the collapsing through here, and then everything is equal and opposite. So as I fall into the space here, fascia, those adhesions migrate to create a buildup here to create a balance for what's happening. Think of walking 120-pound German Shepherd. When you're walking and it's well trained, there's no pull on your body. But if it starts tugging on your body this way, it's the opposite side of the body that has to anchor to stop you from landing on your face. So when we don't have that strong diaphragm and we start collapsing into the core of the body, that's what's creating that dowager's hump. So you're going to see that's going to be coming with the internal rotation of the arms. This will all be driven by the feet, by the way. The breath and the feet basically hold the patterning of what's going on, and then everything else up the chain starts falling into that alignment. So it's a full body thing, but yes, we have tons of people that have corrected their dowager's hump. So absolutely. I even have in my membership a 60-minute class called Addressing the Dowager's Hump, where we address the rib cage, the hands, and the upper back.
Super awesome. Let's see. I don't know. Let's see if we have anybody have any other questions. Certainly ask. I mean, to me, the thing is, I love also that, like, along the way here, we're just very, I just want to reiterate that approaching pain is, like, so important. What I think is so crazy is, first of all, you're doing this in real time and speaking. Right.
Yeah.
So you get to the point where that pain is a guide to where you can release the most. It's talking to you. I say so many times to people, if you want to know what your next move needs to be from a mental, emotional perspective, stand in front of the mirror and say, "Hey, Tom, I love you," and see where that feels good and not good,
Right.
And physically, it's a little easier to point out where those spots are, but those spots of pain are talking to us and are asking for love. And I made a comment while you were in the chat, Deanna, when you were demonstrating and guiding us through this amazing practice, that this is where, like, patience and self-compassion all really come in. Like, there's not a goal here, like, in my mind. Like, you're not trying to achieve something. Like, Deanna has her own approach to like her own personal body experience of this. I do the practice. I have probably a different experience than you, but similar, right? But we're not trying to compare to anybody else. We're having the experience we have because our body needs to go through its own healing journey. And there's Deanna and I are in a group of health leaders together. And, we had a recent meeting. Some of the other folks there, like, stand up and, like, say, "Hey, like, this is my experience." And everybody has a different, like, some people it's just like the physical change is dramatic. Other people it's like, "Oh my God, like, my depression lifted, my, anxiety went away. The trauma just, like, kind of totally went away." And, it's quite amazing. And it's just, you got to do you. Yeah. And I think all things are possible when you open up the fascial superhighway, as I like to call it. Really, really interesting. And Deanna, there's a quick question about, like, when you do when you put your hand between the glute and the towel, Are you kind of doing it palm up or palm down?
Palm down. Yeah. Yeah. And then with an open hand so that you're really helping to release the wrist because, again, we get locked in this internal rotation and we want to release these adhesions so it feels really natural to come into this anatomical position.
Cool. There's another question, like as going back to the hump. I love this conversation about the dowager's hump because my mom right now has a very significant dowager's hump. Part of it was she, as much as I love her, doesn't always listen to the guidance. And then also has really severe osteoporosis, recently broke T12 3 different times.
Wow.
Twice in January in 2 weeks, and then once in March. In March, broke 3 more vertebrae. But it wasn't the fracture didn't cause the dowager's hump, but the dowager's hump over time led to the fact that it blew out the back end, and there's almost nothing they can do. If it was in the front, they could do vertebroplasties, minimize their pain. So I've had to start distally at the toes because she's so far into it, and I just had to move her near me to actually get her to do it, which I'm very thankful of. But the question is, like, when you see people who are elderly, who are like this and they're upright, they're swimmers, they're walking, but even if all they do, in my medical opinion, is keep their shoulders up and back, allow the heart to be open, allow the chest to be open, and do all the things Deanna's talking about, they are so much healthier. And as soon as you start to go like this, you really start to lose it. So the question really is, once I have a hump, is it too late to reverse it? My 80-year-old mom had a bad case of it, but everybody's always attributing it to osteoporosis. And I'm going to call a little bullshit because I know it. My mom's was predated the osteoporosis, and yes, you should treat the osteoporosis. And there's a lot of cool things you can do for that. But if your body and your spine is structurally in alignment, and that anatomic position that Deanna's been talking about is so crucial for health. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't fix the osteoporosis, but the osteoporosis is going to be more of a risk for you if you haven't done this work. So I guess I'll let you answer from your perspective too. I just think it's super important.
And so many people ask, am I too old to start? Or I've had something for 30, 40, 50 years. Does that mean it's been there too long? And I love the analogy. If you had an ice cube in your freezer for 30, 40, 50 years, or you had an ice cube in your freezer from last night, you take them both out, they're both going to melt. So it's all about turning up the internal temperature by connecting to the breath with pressure over time, and nothing is too late. And what is really lovely about this, also pressure on the bone creates osteoblast formation. So years ago, one of my first teachers, 69 years old, after 3 months of blocking, she had her bone density test after, and her bone density had increased. But what's really nice about this is you can approach the body from a distance to where you might have a concern. So because so many of us have concerns in through here, or maybe up in the neck or the low back, if you feel that it's fragile and you don't really feel safe and good about going there, start with the fingers, start with the toes, start changing the energy in the extremities, start heating them up, start focusing on that full exhalation. Then that in itself is going to start to make you feel stronger. It's going to bring your center of gravity back more onto your heels. We should have 60% of our body weight on our heels. The average person has more than 80% on the balls of their feet. And that's even before we throw ourselves into a shoe with a heel. And then what ultimately happens that creates probably the biggest holding point is the tibia bone, that big shin bone. It starts to migrate. It gets pulled out of alignment, and then we can't dorsiflex properly. So we end up walking with this twist, and we keep reinforcing those grooves that keep pulling us down. So by just changing the toes and standing and gripping the toes with the breath, again, you start pumping up the tires, you start bringing your center of gravity back. And just do the difference, like feel the difference between sitting like this and taking 10 breaths and sitting up with your palms forward and taking 10 breaths. And that alone, you feel different when you're breathing because you have more space to breathe from. And again, the aorta, that main artery leaving the heart rate here, if we're all compressed and twisted like most people are, you've just taken that channel and you've twisted it. So now your heart has to work like a monster to try to push blood through there. Where if we're simply sitting as we should be, it's easy. It's like breathing compared to trying to breathe through a straw. It's a lot more challenging. So for people with high blood pressure or heart issues, think about the actual space, the container. If you take a box filled with a bunch of balls and you squish it, things are going to start to fall out the seams. Like, what's leaky gut? It's you've got all this pressure on this organ, and now the integrity of the lining is getting thin and it's wearing and it starts to break, and then things happen. And that's really what's happening in the entire body.
Yeah, I think so much, even like your heart attacks. Why are so many people who are at gold cholesterol on all these fancy medicines having repeat heart attacks? It's because they haven't addressed the underlying cause of the inflammation. They haven't opened up the natural flow of the body, right?
Well, and with
We have a couple
cholesterol, I
people.
mean, really, it's fats sticking on the lining, and that's really just frozen fats. I mean, I live on a river, and I see the river freeze and thaw every year, and it
Mhm.
goes through the same patterning. You start to see the little cholesterol on the river as it starts to get cold before it becomes a solid sheet of ice. So that's what's happening. And then you take a drug, and you're not changing the internal temperature, and you're not changing your foundation of your system. You're not getting the benefit. I just want to share one more thing, just because I live in a 30-story building here in Winnipeg, and it can be minus 40 Celsius in the winter. I could have the most expensive, the best of everything inside my space. If my window breaks and I've got nothing to fix it with, I'm going to die inside there because I'm going to freeze. So the integrity of that cell membrane, which is the fascia, is really in my opinion, the most important thing we need to focus on for overall health. Because again, if that window breaks, doesn't matter what's inside.
It's so true. And there's so many analogies. It's so interesting too, because cholesterol is also an anti-inflammatory. Right. So all of these things are so important. Your body's this amazing system, and there's so much you can do on your own. A couple of people, the toes and the fingers are really stoking people up, which it should. But somebody just asked if you could just kind of repeat the toe pumping directives and standing when you finish with the finger between the toe space. And then also just like somebody asked about what do you do after the feet with the hands?
So after we release the toes, then we really want to, again, we're like a building. So most people, they shift their weight to one side or they're standing like this. We want our feet to be right underneath our hip joints. We want them to be facing straight ahead. We also want to have the knees slightly bent. Most people are locking, hyperextending their knees, and now we're asking the ligaments to hold up our weight rather than these powerful muscles that are designed to hold up our weight. So after we release the toes, and do this in front of a mirror so you can look, have the toes, you can even try to spread them, and then grip the toes as you shift your weight onto your heels and take 10 slow full exhales. And as you're doing that, now you're going to be repatterning how the toes are on the feet. And then once you start walking, you're going to have a greater spring in your step as a result.
Nice. Let me get me back here too. Oops. That's funny. I just hit the wrong button. There we go. I'm back. And then some folks have been asking where we can learn more about your work. So I'm going to drop your website in here because it's blocktherapy.com. For everybody who's viewing this in May, I would highly recommend registering and checking your email tomorrow because, like I said, Deanna has a special gift for you. And I think it's so super important. So I'll put up her URL here. So it's on all the videos. But I see you bringing some toys. I've got my toy right here that I use every morning when I get started with before I get going. So, yeah, what do you got there? I see that you pulled up some gizzies.
Yeah, so we're giving your community a little special, which we basically never do. We're going to give 20% off. So you can either get the Block Buddy with our starter program, which is 9 classes. That was like the littlest sampling. The 9 classes cover the full body. We even have a 2-hour seated class for people that struggle to get up and down off the floor, plus a whole bunch of corrective exercises and additional videos that come with this for $197. If you're over 5 feet tall, the Block Buddy, they're made out of Winnipeg elm, reclaimed elm. So we do not cut trees down. We are using the reclaimed elm, and again, bone and density. So wood is beautiful. People think that because it's wood, it would be more painful. It's actually so kind because bone and wood are friends. The block baby, the smaller version, is for people under 5 feet. Um, we have tons of classes where we use both blocks. Most people in my community will say, if you have a choice, buy both blocks. So for the next 3 days, we're giving you 20% off, whether you buy one or both. So you have that there with your link, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah. And so just so everyone knows, that'll go out tomorrow morning, the discount link, because from what I understand from your team is that this is not something that even happens almost ever. So
Never.
it's like,
No.
This is like a special for
Very,
you guys.
very,
It's
very
never
few
really
special
done.
people get this offer. So you're one of them.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel so blessed. I have a couple of friends who are like, I don't do this for anybody, but I'm doing it for your tribe. But we're all in this together. And like I said, for Lyme Awareness Month this month, I really wanted you to get a sense of how to actually truly heal yourself. Because in my story, 6 years into suffering like crazy, back against the wall, no one knew what was going on. I just went crazy trying to figure out what I could do for myself. And I learned about fascia through a different mechanism. I didn't know Deanna at the time, but it was like, it would have been so much faster and easier if I had block therapy back then. But now that I do it, it's like, holy cow, it's like those leftover things just melt away. And it's like, all of the, and I made some comments. It's like in the chat there, one of the most amazing things is that when you open up the fascia, it doesn't matter whether you're sick or you're healthy, it's still one of the most crucial components for you, from nutrient absorption and optimization, from delivery of nutrients and oxygen to your cells, from detoxification and lymphatic flow to just feeling good. And how many of us, every time you do the demo with your knees locked, I'm like, it took me so long to not do that, but I felt so tired and shitty and crappy. Like I couldn't even hold myself up naturally, but it was like other things weren't aligned right. And I felt like dirt, from a fatigue and brain fog perspective, that I just locked them out because it was just simple at the time. Yeah. When you learn to unravel your fascia from the outside in, kind of like we've been talking about, you get to the point where you get the structural stability more easily and you're using less energy. So even like if you only get 2% more energy from unlocking your knees by playing with your toes and then going, oh, Deanna reminded me to unlock my knees, that 2% is going to allow you to do a bit more. And then it's going to be 10% more energy. Then you're going to be able to do more of the practice. You're going to open up those ribs, release, the liver. And you're going to, your blood's going to improve. Anybody with babesiosis or other blood issues, like, you're cleaning your blood through these major organs that are all getting crushed by your crappy posture. So open it up, I'm just like being real, because like I see people all the time, and the people who get better from chronic illness, whether it's, heart disease, whether it's cancer, whether it's just osteoporosis, or just I feel like crap, fibromyalgia, not from infections or from infections or even heavy metals. It's the people who combine. They do the work they can do at home each and every day, like block therapy, and then they go see somebody to do the stuff they can't fix. And so in my journey, I always share, Deanna, that I was like 70% better before I found the doctors who knew what was wrong, and I needed them for 30%. Wow. But 70% of it is the stuff you can do at home with guidance from people like myself and Deanna. And that's one of the most important things. So from a physical perspective, I think this is one of the most important things that y'all can do. In our program, the Samara Method, we work so much on the mental emotional side, and we'll do breath work and I'll show shaking practices, but I don't need to go and reteach what Deanna is doing and show you how to do my version of fascial release. There's no better approach to it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, combine these things, find the pieces you need most. But seriously, how many of you, like, even, there's yoga toes, people use those, but I mean, the pencil or the finger between the toes and the fingers, I mean, heck, I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I've been running some of the tech, so I didn't get to do the whole practice. Thankfully, I've got to do some of it earlier, but I'm playing here with my fingers and my toes because I know that that's a big deal. And and everybody's looking for the big breakthrough. I'm telling you, the big breakthrough comes with small, steady steps each and every day. So start with what Deanna, showed you here. Go back and watch the replay. And then look out for our discount code to come out tomorrow. You guys are, if you're pumped for it, grab it. I mean, it's one of the greatest things I've ever experienced, and I really think if the block therapy demo resonates with you, when you get one of the little black buddies, and I know there's a little facelift one coming out soon too,
It's
but
out.
to me, the approach isn't about like what I look like. What I look like is a reflection of the health within my body. And it's the reflection of my nervous system function. Everybody, I actually had a friend come this weekend, and it's like so cool. We did a lot of breath work and meditation to help him heal from some trauma. He unfortunately a year and a half ago lost his father very tragically at a young age. And it was like, so I'm like, let's do all the work. And then the day after we did, he's like, my neck is killing me. And like, everybody's like, oh my God, I need like the limbic thing. I need the vagus nerve. And I'm like, look, let's do some work in your pelvis and your lower back. I taught him one exercise, took him 30 seconds, and it was gone. And it's like, this stuff is all connected. So when you're doing the work and you're like getting stuck, maybe it's time to release things physically. And what I found, and maybe Deanna, you could comment on this because you have so many people have gone through the program and so much amazing feedback. What I find is a lot of times the major sticking point, like say, if it's an emotional trauma or sort of this mental loop that keeps going on, if we release the physical body more, that stuff is easier to let go.
Oh, and what's so lovely about it, there's no judgment, there's no going back and rehashing. It happens and it's automatic. It's one of those healing opportunities. So they can be physical. We can have, the body going into fever mode, mucus production, pulling out all the stuff. It can be emotional releases. It can be dreams surfacing. When I was in my 20s, I was a total nightmare, and I used to have a lot of nightmares. Now, when I have them very irregularly, when they do, I'm like, okay, there was something trapped in my psyche that just came to the surface, so I could acknowledge it and then say goodbye. So that's the beautiful piece, is like sometimes people will be just like, I woke up and I was just bawling my eyes out all day. Great. You know what? You're releasing stuck sadness. Or I was angry for no reason today. Good. Yell, get it out. But you don't have to go in and decipher what memory, what was that sparked that. It's running throughout us. And when you can let it go because it's allowed to, then so does the issue that started it in the first place. And then again, you can go back and you can see that whatever it was, that trauma, from a different set of eyes, whether it be from a place of compassion or forgiveness or a deeper understanding. Maybe there was abuse. Then you suddenly have this understanding that makes it different. So then you can go forward in life with a different perspective. And that's really what it's about. We want to live a beautiful, wonderful life. And we all, whether they're the big T's, the little T's, they affect our nervous system because they affect how we breathe. So if we can really bring it down to that simple thing, and where there's adhesions and scar tissue, you have blocks to cells. I'm actually going to say what I was going to say, but we can truly change all dynamic when we understand that scar tissue and adhesion are really the root of all evil. They're blocking the flow. Cells not properly fed and clean, they're not happy. They're going to give you symptoms. They're going to scream. They're going to be giving you some kind of information that I need you to give me some support and cleaning out. And when we can just look at those uncomfortable moments from the cell's perspective instead of from how it's affecting our overall life, then we can approach it with a process and an understanding that, again, takes that fear out of the equation. And then pain is just a sensation. It's the baby crying. You're not going to throw the baby out because it's crying. You're going to love it. You're going to understand what those baby's needs are and provide for. So look at your cells that way. They're working so hard to allow you to thrive. Most of us are just surviving because we're not paying attention to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's so critical. And like so many people who are in this healing journey, at least in my area, kind of the Lyme and mycotoxins and like co-infection world, heard about German neural therapy. This is where the people take, hopefully preservative-free procaine and inject it in the scar tissue to address what they call energy interference fields. And this is kind of what Deanna was just talking about. But one, you got to go find somebody who's not only knows how to do it, but they're exceptionally good at it, and it costs a bunch of money. This stuff you can do at home. And if you just use the towel, it doesn't cost you anything. If you want to get more deeper into the process, that's why Deanna's gifting you the program, at such a lower rate. And, it's so helpful. And let's see, we had another question from V about like had a bad fall a few months back in a wheelchair temporarily, which is, I love that. Add in temporarily 100%. Can't really do the leg motions at the movement. Can I do upper body and arm work to help in healing, until I can move physically more?
Absolutely. Even putting that rolled up towel behind your mid back so that when you're sitting there, you're lifting the rib cage, do the handwork. Those things in and of itself will make a difference. And then you can even put the towel underneath the leg, just use the weight of your leg to get compression in the hamstring. If you can even lift your butt up and you can sit on a rolled up towel so you're right on the perineum, that's going to bring some different foundation to your seat. So there's so many things you can do. And I just want to share, we have a community on Facebook it's private, but everybody's allowed, and we've got over 18,000 members. Block Therapy Community on Facebook. That is such a beautiful place because you can ask questions. I have two of my therapists that moderate it, but I have people from all over the world that are also giving you support and feedback. So for the person that has fibromyalgia or MS or Parkinson's or chronic pain for 30 years, we've got people that have that are using this system. So you'll be hearing from them in real time what their experience has been. So it's not just Deanna saying this is going to help you. And that's why I just love that community group so much. It's so beautiful in there.
Cool. Yeah. And if you just head over to Facebook, I'm sure if you just search Block Therapy, it'll come up and you can request to join. Fatina asked, can this method actually release fascia from a surgical scar that's 40 years old?
Yeah. And again, I would recommend asking that question in the community group. We have so many people with those C-sections, those deep, deep scars that might have 2 or 3. And then we'll have people say after they've been doing the work that, finally they're getting integration and those deeper scars inside, endometriosis and like all of the things that can happen. We're getting the healings of all those things, fibroids, cysts coming out. Again, be aware that there's going to be healing crises. So when you see added blood, that's your body cleaning itself out. So, but yes, absolutely. It's the persistence and it's the shearing. So basically the scars, those adhesions, they're magnetic. If you have magnets far enough apart, they have no attraction, bring them close together, they seal with the force. Now try to pull them apart. Not likely, but you can slide and glide them apart. And that's why when we're in the process, when you're lying on the block, I have you doing these slow twists and turns. And that's how we release those adhesions so that we can get deeper, deeper, deeper. And then with the scars, you'll start to see that integration of blood flow. So if the scar is white, you're going to start to see it being riddled with red, like little specks of red. And then it's going to be more and more and more. And then it will become more diffuse as you continue to work through it.
Yeah. So we have a couple other questions, and I'm going to go in reverse order for a reason. One is just like, can we do small parts of it, or do we have to do like full on? And I think as we've spoken, you start with what you can do from where you're at and progress slowly over time. Even just the between the toes helps my mom a ton. She doesn't have the energy with her advanced Parkinson's and her structural state, to do all that, but she sees benefit from even a little bit. But my suggestion is a little bit each and every day can help. And then, and it's better to do, in my mind, 2 or 3 minutes a day, or maybe like 10 minutes between the toes. I know that's not 3 minutes each toe, but it's getting there. And if you're consistent, you'll see progress. It's like when you do 10 minutes one day and then don't do it again for 3 weeks, or you do the 2-hour chair class once and you expect a miracle. That's not reality. It happens to 1 or 2 people, but not often. But the other question too is, what about healing lupus? And in my opinion, all of these, we don't know what is fully healable and not healable. But I think that all of these things, it's worth a chance because you're going to feel better in the process. And I know from decades of studying this that if your body is in a more optimal alignment, it's more likely to heal. We also know when it's not in an optimal alignment, if you feel good now, you're more likely to fall apart later. With autoimmunity, whether it's lupus or scleroderma or even autoimmune thyroiditis, your body is attacking itself, and it's almost like envisioning itself as a foreign invader. So when you're attacking self, the question is why? And one of the reasons that we get this, we know from PANS and PANDAS, the infection triggered autoimmunity, and we also know from people who have really some people almost have like autoimmune worsening of their heart attack when the heart cells that are now damaged are circulating through the body. We can see the heart attack grow, the area of damage, because you're seeing parts of yourself you're not supposed to see. So going back to what Deanna said with leaky gut, part of it is your gut is a barrier. It's supposed to let some things in, but smaller things and things that are processed in a certain way. If it becomes swollen and inflamed from whatever the cause, whether it's your posture, your fascial connection, a previous surgery that then slowly starts to ring you in the wrong direction, like some of those pictures, whenever you're working with this, the idea is we want to bring down the inflammation. What's one of the most important ways of bringing down inflammation? It's to get those magnets to slide and then separate so that now you have the space for things to flow. And so I'm not going to go out on a limb and say, hey, block therapy is going to fix lupus. But if there were 2 or 3 things in the world that I was going to try on my own that could potentially go really far towards improving my outcome with lupus, whether that means I'm cured or I'm just a lot better, it would certainly be opening up your fascia with block therapy. And I don't know if you have any like special stories in the background for lupus, but I think it's a really important topic to talk about autoimmunity.
Yeah, any autoimmune, like really, again, when your breath isn't working, your entire nervous system is dysregulated. Everything is dysregulated. As you were talking about the heart cells moving, you were reminding me of a video that I have to still do. So if you had a suitcase and all of your clothes were neatly folded and stacked exactly where they were supposed to be, that's an example of like when you see a picture of what's going on inside, everything is perfectly aligned. That's nobody's reality. Then you take the suitcase like me when I'm packing after a trip and I throw everything in. And then like I've got the sweater and the sleeve is like wound up and tied over there. It's like everything is out of place. And when you have a body that's compressed and twisted and congested, that's what's happening. Everything is getting mangled and there's constant movement happening. So how can there be regulation in our systems when nothing is in its proper space? So what we're doing here is we're putting the cells back, not just the organ. We're going deeper than that. We're actually pulling those cells back to their rightful position. And as long as they're where they're supposed to be, there's no dysregulation. It's when the cells go so far away from their home that the body's like, what's happening? Like, and then things don't work anymore. So I know that's a very basic, response to that, but that's really what it comes down to. And it really is simple. So yeah, I would absolutely start because your breath is going to start healing. And first we have to move out with that exhale, the past. And that's why we exhale for that count of 6, inhale for 4. So they've even proven 84% of weight loss comes through proper exhalation because of the detoxifying effects of the exhale. So whether it's for weight loss or for simply cleaning out your body, we want to move the past out so we have room for the present so we can walk into the future with a clean, healthy body.
I love that so much. And as you were talking to you, I was thinking like a lot of autoimmunity too is we have things called circulating immune complexes, not to get super nerdy, but we need part of it when that causes inflammation and triggers autoimmunity. Some of that is just stuff that's not being processed by the immune system, being detoxified as fast as optimal. So it is about the stagnation and everything. So the quicker and the more, or even just the more on the body's optimal timeline that we detoxify and change these things, the healthier you're going to be. The less inflammation, the less issue. When we look at things like the pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome, or PANS that I talked about, one of the things we think is a trigger is recurrent infections in a particular area. But a lot of times it's strep or like mold. But the problem with that is they get stuck. and they're stagnating. And it's not necessarily like, oh, it's just in my nose or I have strep in my throat, but it's what the immune cells do and where they travel. So if you're optimally open, the lymphatics will drain things away from the brain, not to the brain. The lymphatics are draining everything away from the major organ systems, and the brain and a lot of the other tissues, even the heart, as we mentioned, can really be damaged by all this like recurrent exposure to our own cells that are ready to fight infection, and then they accidentally start fighting us. So if you open this up and allow it to flow, it's going to make a huge difference. And so I would encourage everyone to go grab the replay. It's up on YouTube. We're going to leave it there, over on LinkedIn as well. You'll get an email tomorrow about all of this, and Deanna's amazing gift to you. But take advantage of it, even if you just start out with that free program and then advance into the block therapy, other levels later. You're gonna find that if you do this for a week, you're never gonna stop doing it. In fact, even if you just sit there tonight and play with your fingers between your toes or a pencil between your toes for 15-20 minutes while you're reading a book or you're watching TV or whatever you're doing, hopefully with your blue blockers on so that you can go to sleep well. But, the thing is, it's going to shift the way your body feels. Like the thing I notice about the feet is when I get in between my toes, there's a couple that are more painful than the others. I give them a little more TLC, but I can feel that going up into old athletic injury patterns and opening it up. And so, yeah, is it completely healed right away? No, but I can feel it. And the thing I love so much about your work, Deanna, is that I get an opportunity to feel where an area of discomfort is connected to the rest of me, and how some of the patterns of pain that I feel from crashing mountain bikes and crashing skiing and, hockey and all that lovely stuff, because there is a reality. We bust stuff up, I get to feel it starting to change. And a lot of us, I think it gives us hope that when we feel a little bit of lifefulness in our body, a little more connection, a little more openness, that there is truly the possibility of healing in an area that we might have never felt healing before, and never felt the possibility of healing. We hear other people, but we're like, it's not for us. I play with the concepts that you teach us and my paddle, and I have one of the big ones too. It's unbelievable. So give yourself an opportunity to experience yourself again for the first time.
I would also just like to share, because you've mentioned your mom with Parkinson's. So Gary Sharp is one of our community members. He's been with us now for 5 years, I believe. So he started with Block, and he actually has a site called Outthinking Parkinson's, and we're shared on his site. But he had to take the first 3 positions for months. That's all he could do, because he was on so many meds that every time he would work the liver, he'd get thrown back a little bit. So he had to really navigate what's the pace that made sense for him. But he persisted. But then what was fascinating was 3 years ago, I added a class to my membership called Hair Health, where I teach people how to release the scalp from the skull. We should be able to feel a glide between the scalp and the skull. And for a lot of people, if you put your fingers there, it can be really sticky. So you don't feel that glide. So in this class, I'll just show you with hair, we spend about 3 minutes just decompressing, but then I grip and I draw and I pull the scalp away from the skull, and I'll just kind of hang out here and feel that release. And it doesn't take long before you suddenly feel that release happening. After he did that, he said his Parkinson's symptoms changed the most dramatically than anything else he had ever done by releasing that patterning in his head. He also said the balding was starting to change. But then he just got his paddle just the other day, and he said he can't wait, because all those cranial nerves that are going to get impacted with the paddle, he's super pumped. But I just wanted to share, because the hands, the feet, and the top of the head, these are the major holding patterns for everything. The head is at the apex. So the way that the fascia will grip, grip, grip over time as we start falling out of alignment, that creates the balding, the thinning hair. It creates the aging face, but it's also squeezing your brain. And it's impacting your eyes and all of the other structures. Everything is becoming affected. When you look at your nostrils, we want them to be the same size and shape, because the air goes in one side, feeds the opposite side, but the side that it goes in, it also feeds that side of the brain, and vice versa. So when you look at your nostrils, if there's an asymmetrical pattern to them, that's also sharing that you're not getting that right oxygen to both sides equally in the body. So these are just little things to look at. Like we want balance and symmetry. That's really the focus. Even the eyes. Are you sitting with your head tilted all the way? That's going to pattern how you see the world, and then how your entire center of gravity has to shift if you're walking around with your head tilted, which we all do because we're dominant on one side and we haven't been given this stuff. So just little things to become aware of, and look in the mirror. As Tom said, like, first of all, say, like, I love you, Tom. I love you, Deanna, but also look and see yourself talking. And I mean, it's great because we're on Zoom all the time. So pay attention. Are you talking like this with one eye shifted down? And I just, one more quick thing, because this was so fun. My ex-husband and I, we were in yoga teacher training together, going through all of this stuff. And I was really learning about perception. So he was asking me a question, and in a rush, I was about to look up and answer this way. And then I thought, no, I'm going to wait. And then I looked and I answered this way. And I thought how different he would have received the answer. I'm saying the same words, but if I say yes or yes,
Looking
how,
in the
how
eye, yeah.
different we take that energy in. So becoming thoughtful with how we communicate, with smiling, with just using your eyes. I mean, all of these things matter, and they're subtle, but they impact us. So when you start diving into your fascia and you really connect to your cells, all of these things start to fall into place in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, it's such an incredible story. I totally agree. And one of the things I just posted is a T.S. Eliot quote that I love, and I thought of when you were talking, but it says, we shall not cease from exploration. And the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the very first time.
Oh.
And that's what I was thinking, like, as we were talking here, I'm like, we go back to the babies. They need to breathe a full first breath. But if we but it's not saying, it's not just the breath, it's the freedom of the entire system. And when you're a little one, the breath opens up the brain, opens up all that from the birth canal where your head's squished, releases all the fascial structures. This screaming opens up and kind of repressurizes everything and pops all the fascia in the right direction. And then we can do that. So then in the work with block therapy, that's what I feel like. You open up the fascia, and it was like I was saying, like, reconnect to your body. You'll come back into yourself, perhaps visiting your true self for maybe the first time ever.
Yeah. By
going on this journey. So I would highly encourage everyone to explore block therapy. And then I'm going to give you two last questions because we can roll them together, and then I want to be respectful of your time and thank everyone because we've already been going for a long time. It's awesome, almost 2 hours. But this is what happens when you get people who are super stoked about healing and helping others. So any exercises to improve things just popped up and it moved up. Any breathing exercises to balance the nostrils or other things for nostrils? And then kind of along the same lines, what about facial paralysis? I don't have any details on it. I mean, there's so many different ways to do that, but what do you think?
I'm going to give two really awesome things to do. So for the nostrils now, again, I'm not going to actually do it. I'm just going to explain it because I don't want to put my fingers in my nose right now. But if you actually put your fingers inside your nose and you push down onto the bed of the nostril and you draw your fingers away and you hold. So basically you're inside your nose and you're drawing away and you're holding. Pressure over time with your fingers will create a melting and it will start to release that. Now, the paddle that Tom has in his hand and was showing you, I have that's a whole program. I call it the facelifter program, but it's 9 classes starting from right below the collarbones, working all the way up through the face. It's amazing at releasing all the things, in through here. And we're going to actually add more into our membership that are full body. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to get in through here, the major lymphatic drainage sites. These are all addressed with the blocks as well, but also the paddle, just because of the landscape of the face being so intricate. It's a really great tool to get in and around areas. And then I want to show, I'm going to explain it. I literally just did the video and we're going to be sharing it on YouTube, but releasing the tongue from inside of the mouth. For people that have tongue ties, this will be incredible. For people dealing with stagnant lymph, not getting enough blood and oxygen, issues with your teeth and gums. So what we would do is we would take both the middle and the fourth finger. I'm going to have to explain it because I can't talk with my hands in my mouth, but both hands go in your mouth. And then we bring the fingers to the inside below the teeth. And then once they're in there, we're going to draw the hands away because we want to broaden the jaw. As we get older, heads typically become narrower and longer. We want to keep the breadth to the face and the structure of the skull correct. So when we draw the fingers away and then push the fingers down to that soft tissue, you'll likely feel one side is a little thicker and more painful than the other side. When you do that, start moving the tongue toward the roof of the mouth to dislodge the tongue from the inside. I'll do that now for 3 minutes every morning. It is unbelievable. I've got a blog that will be out tomorrow showing Daniel. He had a stage 3 axonal brain injury. And I just spent my 3rd time with him 2 weekends ago. I had him doing this every morning. Unbelievable, the change in how he can speak and the change in the shape of his head. So you can go onto my site, blocktherapy.com, tomorrow, click blog. We're literally sharing it. And this video will actually be in there showing you how to do this. But if you do that for 3 minutes every day, you're going to lift your tongue. You're going to bring symmetry to the tongue, open up this drainage and flow. It's a beautiful thing to do.
So it's really interesting is I've had a lot of work done like that, like manual inside, but dumping both that I've never seen you do this before or talk to you about it. So I just did it and like rammed it in there. And it's like, as soon as I start to pull some of the old patterns of now, granted, I've had crashes on the right side of my body, and it's interesting of the dental stuff I have, the right is worse than the left. Okay. It's really interesting because I would immediately could feel my upper back releasing even more. And it's like your shoulder rotates out. And then the other thing, everybody wants to know what to do about their vagus nerve and the drainage out of their brain.
Yeah.
Because that all happens. Right. So, but part of what happens is your temporal bone, your ear bone has all the muscle, almost all the muscles of your neck attaching back here. And that's where the vagus nerve comes out, where the temporal bone plugs in the occipital bone. And so just by doing that in the mouth, it's widening your jaw, which is then rotating my temporal bone back into a more proper position. And you could actually, when I did, I could actually feel it coming up here. So like, I mean, how long did I do it for? 90 seconds or so. And then if you notice, like in the beginning, I was like a little uncomfortable and then I was like, because I didn't swallow before I did it. But then all of a sudden my tongue popped up like as I did it and rotated up in the back and forward in the front. So if you look back, you'll see my tongue kind of pokes forward. I had nothing to do with that, like voluntarily. It just popped, it like released and did that. So,
and just to note, I started doing that only 3 weeks ago because years ago, I had 2 molars removed and I didn't get any implants. And because everything migrates, I know that if I don't keep on top of this, I'm going to start to lose my jaw. So this is how I maintain the jaw. But then I started adding that pressure down with the fingers and moving the tongue. And then for the first time, I'm like, wow, I can really feel my jawbone way cleaner. This became my daily habit. It's only been 3 weeks I've been doing this. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this, I'm sharing it with my communities and my teachers. I'm like, share this with everybody. It's free. Just do it. It's so
principles,
simple.
Right? It's like, it's a brand new tech application of the proven principle, which I think is so critical. All right, I'm going to be bad. One last question. Is there magic to 3 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, we can't rush melting. And that's really what it comes down to. And 3 minutes, when I started before block therapy, when I was only working on patients with my hands, that was the time that I felt, because I'd be leaning over a patient, I'd be adding compression, and then it would be around that period of time that I felt, okay, now we're getting that really deep release and now we can move on. So that became a foundational piece from my experience working with patients for years.
Awesome. Well, Deanna, I want to say thank you so very much. I mean, what an amazing, amazing experience and conversation. I want to put your website back up on the, when I put it in the chat, I can pop it on the screen for a minute. So lots of thank yous to all of us. We're really so grateful for you guys being here. Please share this with anyone you think that could benefit from it, because, Deanna's created a tool, discovered an app, an approach to releasing fascia that can make a huge difference in people's health and wellness. And that's really, for me, rather than Lyme Awareness Month, let's make this Lyme Healing Month, and let's just get rid of the Lyme so that we can just apply it to healing to everybody, because that's really what it's about. We're at a time in human history where we need to support each other with our light and our love and our gratitude and sharing this healing, in such an important way. It's just like, I'm sure there's been bad times, but we're alive in this one. And this is the worst kind of timing in my life from chronic illness and reliance on pills. I want you to bring that, like the ability to heal back into yourself, take back your autonomy with self-healing, bring back the control from outside to inside, and then ask for a little help if you need a surgery or you need like a medicine, but don't go thinking that's the starting point. Start, like, I think it was Di, but someone said in the chat, amazing foundational healing practice, right? So the foundation of healing is what you do each and every day at home. And I'd rather see you do 5 or 10 minutes every day for yourself, because then you're saying, like I said about the mirror, when you look in the mirror and you say, I love you, part of saying I love you is picking up one of these things, doing a practice that proves to your body and to the universe, to the source of life, that you actually do truly love yourself. Because to me, when you're given 1 or 2 or 3% healing, you're given a new tool that could be the piece that gets you on your healing journey to that next level. When you say yes to that, then you're going to get another 5 or 10 or 20%. But if you say no to a 2%, do you really think the universe is going to give you 10 more percent when you said F you to 2%? So take action. And when you take action, you're going to get, and the other part is, it's like interest, right? If you start investing now, you're going to get compound interest. In the first month or 2, you might not see all of the results, but you're going to feel good about it. And then it's just going to be like, whoosh. You never know when your inflection point will be. So start today and really take advantage of all of this. Deanna, in closing, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Well, first of all, Dr. Tom, this has been absolutely amazing. You are a light that the world needs. And I thank you so much for all of your contributions. I can't even tell you how grateful that I am to have gotten to know you and to continue on with HLC with you. And for all of you out there, my tagline is breathe and believe, because honestly, when you do start to dive in, you start to see the changes. And most importantly, just smile. Smiling itself makes all the difference in how you feel in your mind. When you're on the block, if you're in pain and you smile, it changes the game. Smile at everyone you see, send your light into the world, and you're going to see it coming back tenfold, as Tom said. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, and thank you to all you for joining us and sticking around for such a long time. We're so grateful to be able to share this with you. Look at your inbox tomorrow for a little special gift from Deanna. And then remember, we've got next Monday with our friend Arturo Gaitan. Then we've got Harry Massey and myself on the 27th and 29th, respectively. You'll get some more emails about that once you're registered. And you are also very welcome. Thanks so very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.